Hello and welcome to another tutorial from ICT. In this one, we are going to be making a number guessing game using JavaScript. So this is the project that we're going to be making. Right, so right here we have a input box, we have a button and some text on the screen. So the game is asking to guess a number between 1 and 30. So I can press in, say 10, and I can either click enter or press the enter key on the keyboard. So let's try the click. So right now the program is asking us to go higher. Let me try 19. Still saying go higher. So I pressed enter at this point. I say 25. Still say go higher. 39, 30, 28. Go lower, 27. Okay, so when we get the number correctly, shows the message saying you guessed the number correctly, it was 27. Let's play again. So at this point the program has generated a new number behind the scenes, and then we're able to input the number again. So if I put 27 again, so it's at the moment it's telling us to go lower. What we also have is if I press in, like say, some characters inside that are not a number and press enter, so the program will tell you value entered is not a number. Do not use spaces either. So if I just leave some space inside, it should show the same number. So it's a way for us to safeguard the program from crashing. Right? This project is going to be made fully with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Okay, so on my desktop, I have a folder called JS Tutorials. Okay, here I have a bunch of tutorials that I've done before. I'm just going to make a new folder here called number guessing game JS. Okay, so this folder here is where we're going to be creating all of our files to work on the game. Right, so with my Visual Studio open, I'm going to drag and drop that folder inside. So this becomes our workspace. Okay, so any files or anything like that we create is going to be saved inside of here. Okay, so at the moment it doesn't have any files, and you can see the inside as well. So if I go here and create a file called index.html, okay, you'll see the index.html file gets created inside of the folder. Okay, the Visual Studio Code makes it a lot easier for us to work with this kind of stuff and make files, edit them, delete them if we need to, without needing to go through the folder. Right, so with this one created, I'm also going to need another file called style.css. So the JavaScript file is going to be saved inside of the HTML file, and the CSS file will be controlling the style of the page. Okay, so in Visual Studio Code, there's a short code that will allow us to basically get all the HTML body, head, tag, everything inside. So you just put an exclamation mark and press tab. Right, so it kind of does all the main stuff for you, so you don't have to type it in again. Okay, so you got the doc type, HTML, head, body, and end of the tags as well. I'm going to change this one's title to number guessing game. Okay, we can leave the rest of the stuff as it is. We also need to link our style.css to it. Okay, so inside of here we can just, if I type in link, and I'm going to go and pick my style, and then he finds the style.css file and launches it with the HTML. Okay, so to start up, I'm going to make a new div here. So this is a divider. I give it an ID called main. So this is basically going to be the window for all of this. So everything else here is going to be inside of that one. Okay. Right after that, I'm going to need to give it a h1. And in the h1, I can say anything. I can say more ICT number guessing game with JS. Okay. Then I'll say h2. Guess the number between 1 and. So the number here is a dynamic one. So basically, I want JavaScript to be able to change that. So if I change it from say 30 to 40 to 100 to 1000, I don't want to be able to just change it in two different places. So I want to be able to change it in one place. Then that h2 hasn't ended yet. End that there. And then I can create a span Okay, and the span, inside the span, I'm going to give a number. So just say 00 for now. And then I need to give this one an ID phone number. Okay. And then we're going to need our input. So input going to be style, sorry, input type is going to be text. ID, we'll call it input. So we're IDing these things here to either style them in the CSS or speak to them through the JavaScript. Okay, and then we also going to need a button, and then for now I'm just going to say enter here for now, and this one here, because there's only one button, I can deal with that later on. Okay, we also do a paragraph, and the paragraph is basically just going to show the message. I need an ID call message. Okay, so to see how the page looks like, you can either use a live preview. Tend to just go and check, because this one doesn't really need a live preview, to be fair. So I tend to just go check it like this if I need to. So this is what we want it to look like, but this is what it looks like so far. So we have our header, we have our H2, we have the input box, we have the enter button, and then we have the message. Okay, so with all of this done, we can go do the CSS first and then jump into the JavaScript right after. Okay, so if I go to the CSS file, which is a style.css, first I'm going to need to style the HTML and the body. I'm going to say margin, set that to 0. Padding, I want to also set it to 0. Height, let's set it to 100%. Width, I'm set that to 100% as well. Background color, I can set that to a 6A, 6C, and 6D. It's like a dark gray. Okay, font family could be, let's try this one. I'm just picking random ones, the ones that our Visual Studio Code is suggesting. Right, so if I go here and just to refresh the page to see what it looks like. So this is what we have assigned that color for the background, and we change the text. Okay, but the reason we're doing a HTML and body is because we don't want the height to be just where the box is. So if you don't do the 100%, it will just probably just end here with the color, and the rest will stay white. Okay, but try to delete that and save it here. It actually still worked, which is great. Well, I'm just going to leave that there. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do is the main. Okay, so let's take a look at the main. Okay, so the main is the divider. So inside of that we have everything here. Okay, so I want this one's width to be about 60% of the overall page. Okay, display to be block. Margin, not max resolution, margin to be auto, so it's centered. Text align inside of it should be all centered. Align items, we have set that to a center as well, so that way any other boxes like buttons or anything else, if it doesn't align with the text align, it will align with the item. Then we've got the border radius. I'm going to set that to 20 pixels, so it's a round border. And then let's give it a border property, so 2 pixels solid black. Okay, and then lastly margin top, set that to say 50 pixels. Okay, so this is the main. Okay, so if I refresh it, this is what it looks like now. So it looks okay. I think we need to give it a background color. Background color, we can give it a wheat. Then yep, that would work as well. You can also give it like a yellow, orange, however you want. Right, so I think wheat looks better. Okay. Right. So now for the input box, we wanted to give it a drop shadow and maybe style it out a little bit. Okay. So let's go and say the input. Right, padding 10 pixels, margin is also 10 pixels. So padding is what's inside the box, margin is what's outside the box. Border radius, we give it a 10 pixel as well. Okay, font size, want to make a larger font, 18 points is fine. Next line should be center. Display is block, so we don't want it to be next to the button like this, so we want it to stay on its own. Okay, and then we set the margin to auto. Right, so now it's the interesting part, is the box shadow. So I'm saving as I'm going, so this is where it looks right now, but we want to give it the box shadow just underneath it. Okay, and we can do that directly inside of CSS. The box shadow, 0 pixels, then 10 pixels, 14 pixels, -7 pixels. So, and the color is, we can give it a yeah, that would work as well actually. The color for the background and that, yeah, that's a nice color too. Fine. So let's try and refresh that. It looks nice. Okay, so these are the 4 directional ones, right? So you got your up, down, left and right. Okay, so you can pretty much like change the numbers around and then see what the effects that you have. So this is after I had to play around with it a little bit to see what kind of effects I liked on it, and then I finalized it. Then we go to text shadow. Okay, so text shadow is going to be 0 pixels, 0 pixels, oh sorry, 1 pixel, 0 pixel, and same color as before. Okay, so now if I go in here, you can see a little bit of shadow behind the text, but not like quite pronounced. Okay, so right after that we can now go to the button. Okay, so inside the button CSS, font size 15 pixels, font family can stay the same with 150 pixels, right to 50 pixels, like a nice block. Border width 1 pixel, color white. So the color is in the button's background color is the text color, because we're going to have a nice purple color background, so we want to make sure that the text shows. Okay, border color is going to be, I'm going to copy and paste the number here. Oh, actually copy the whole thing, it's fine. Okay, font weight to bold, border radius to 6 pixels. Okay, and then I think for the rest of it I'm just going to copy and paste that. Okay, so you see once again we got your box shadow, text shadow, and inset is basically means that it's embossed into the button. Okay, and then we also have the linear gradient background, so it's being changed between the two here. Okay, and then we're giving a margin 20 pixels. So basically the button is going to be separated from the input box, and it's not going to look like this. So if I refresh this now, it looks like this. Okay, all right, so we also need to change the hover for the button. Okay, if I say button hover, so when the mouse is over the button. Okay, I want to change the linear background a little bit. So now it's being changed slightly, so there's like a little bit of a effect. Let's switch over. As you can see, it just shows the basic just being reversed in. Okay, just a little feedback to the users. Okay, and lastly, I'm going to do the paragraphs. So paragraph, I want the font weight to be bold. Okay, and that way that's the last bit. So because that's the important message. Okay, so the user interface is ready. Let's get to the JavaScript. Okay, so to start scripting, let's make our script section in the HTML. All right, so I'm going to start off with a variable called number limit. Okay, so this is the number limit that we have. I'll set it to 30, and as the program changes, if we change this number, we should be able to also change this number here. Okay, I'm going to create another variable called random number. So what this one's going to do is we're going to be using the math class here, right? So math flow. Okay, and then we're going to be using math random. Okay, and there's a reason we're doing that is because when we use math random on its own, it basically returns decimal numbers. So we don't want that. So if your random number is 13.6897 whatever, right, you won't be able to guess that, obviously, and unless the number is exactly the same as the user input, the game will not return a value. So by using math flow, we're kind of limiting that to an integer. Okay, let's go into math random, and then now we're going to times that by the number limit. Okay, so it's going to go from minimum of 0 to the maximum of 30. So it's going to generate a random number between those two numbers. Okay, and now it's time to change the 30 here to the span that we created earlier. Okay, let's go to document, get element by ID, and we want the number. Okay, number.inner HTML is equals to number limit. Okay, if we refresh this page now, we should be able to say 30. Okay, and if I change that 30 to say whatever the number is, there you go. Okay, so that's the idea at the moment. So you don't want to be changing stuff in two different places when you want to update the game, basically. Okay, so let's do our check input function. So we're going to have basically one function and one event, right? So the function itself can be triggered by the button, but the event that we're going to be looking for is the key down event or key up event. Okay, so let's do the function first. The function, say check input. Right, so we're not going to pass any arguments or anything like that. First, we need to start off with the input number. Right, so we're going to say var input number is equals to parse int. So we're going to try to basically change the number to an integer first, right? So if we can, because the input values are always a string. Now if we pass in a letter or symbol or space, we should be able to tell the user, look, this is not a number, please enter a number and try again. Okay, so let's go to the document, get element by ID. We're searching for the ID called input value. Value. Okay, don't forget the semicolon in the end. Okay, and just to make things a little bit easier for us, so console.log, and I want to also print the random number that the game has generated. Okay, so after that we can do now, we can do if statement here to say number. Okay, we're looking for the data type at this point, is integer. Okay, and we want to go for the input number. So if the input number, so whatever that was inputted, is a number, then we can do the following, right? So we can check whether it's greater, lower, or equals to, and so on. If it's not, then we can pass in a message here, say document.get element by ID message inner HTML is equals to value entered is not a number. do not use spaces or letters. Okay, and after that we're just going to end it there. Okay, so just to test this out, I'm going to link this check input event with the button. Okay, so on click, check input, and then don't forget the brackets. You don't have to put a semicolon or anything like that inside. Okay, so I'm just gonna, we already have letters inside, so if I press enter, now it says value entered is not a number, do not use spaces or letters. Okay, so inside of here we're going to need to do a few if statements here. So let's start with the if. Input number is now less than random number. Then document.get element by ID. Let's say message dot HTML go higher. Okay, I'm just going to copy this line here. Let's do else if input number is greater than random number. Okay, this one's going to be go lower because we've guessed higher than the number that we're looking for. Okay, so these are the whether it goes higher or lower. Now, other than that, it can only be equals to the number, right? So now we're going to say, okay, when you guessed correctly, it was, and then do a space, end that quotation mark here, plus, and then we put the input number here, do a plus, and then we can say now, comma, and say let's play again. Okay, and at this point we need to generate a new random number. We're going to say random number is equals to math.flow, do capital, math.flow, math.random, and then times by the number limit. Okay, after that we basically can now empty the input box. Document dot element by ID. Okay, I'm looking for the input dot value is equals to empty. Right, and then obviously the new one we can just say console.log random number as well, just to see what random number gets generated here. Okay, so at the moment this is going to work with the click event, so let's test it out anyway. We go to F12, press F12 on your browser. I'm using Firefox, good old trusty Firefox. So I'm going to press 10, press enter, and then at the moment it's generated the number 23. Okay, so 23 is the correct number. If I press 24, it's going to tell me to go lower. 23, I'm going to say to basically right here, it's going to say I've guessed it correctly, but I can see that I've got some errors here. So my error is in line number 42, I think. 42. Oh, elements, element, yeah. Okay, element by ID, not elements. Okay, let's try it again. So now, pressing 10 again. So right now it's generator number 1. Okay, so if I put in 1, no errors, and now it's generated another number. I think that's a 0. It's for 44, 1, 0. Now it's 19. Press 18. It's higher. If I press 20, lower. Well, it's going to be 19. Okay, so far it's working really great. But as you can imagine, typing the number in there, much easier to press the enter key rather than clicking the button. Obviously, the button there can be there for the accessibility purposes, but it's always a good idea to give shortcuts to the users. Okay, so to do that, we need to add a event listener to the page. Okay, so if I can go, there's my function there. It ends here, so curly bracket to curly bracket. I'm just going to add an event listener here. Right, so in JavaScript, you have lots of different event listeners. You have key press, key down, and key up. The one I'm going to be using now is the key up one, and it's very simple actually. So go to document, get element by ID. I'm looking for the input. Okay, then I'll say add event listener, and then inside of here, I'm looking for the key up event, right? And instead of creating a separate event from this, I'm just going to make it inside of here. There's a function. Let me do the semicolon here first, right? Okay, so function, and then I'm passing in the E, which is the event, right? And right after that, okay, I need to do my curly brackets for the function. Okay, great. So any key that is up, it's going to find the key that we're looking for, right? So as soon as the event triggers, it's going to pass in the value of the key that we're looking for inside of this E parameter here, right? So this is a keyboard event. Okay, so what we're going to do is we can do an if statement, we can do a switch statement, but because it's only one, we'll just use the if statement for now. Okay, so the e.key equals enter. So if the enter key is pressed, right, we're going to say check input. That's it. Okay, so just make sure that all of this is happening inside of this bracket here, right? So this bracket ends there, and there's a semicolon after it. Because the function is being declared inside of the add event listener line here, that's why we need to do it this way. You can also do it other ways, but this is the easiest way to do it. So whenever you're creating an add event listener, you're creating the function or the event with it as well. Okay, so with that done, we can test it out. So now I can press 10, enter, it does it. And if I press say 12, enter that, and then it tells me that it's all done. Okay, you can make the game a little bit more accessible as well without needing to delete that one. Okay, so just to say, for example, here I can say it's too high. I think I can change the number here so it actually just shows the value. Okay, just delete that for a second. The input number plus is too high. Okay, is high. Okay, no, sorry, this is going to be is low, go higher. Okay, and then this one's going to be input number plus is high, go lower. Okay, and also right after that, I think we can pretty much just like do this with it. Okay, so it actually clears the box for us as well. Okay, so the values are going to be emptied. Right, so that way you know what you inputted before, and then the box is now emptied, so you can just type in whatever you need and then get to the next bit. All right, let's try it out. Okay, so I'm going to type in 10. Then as you can see, the box gets emptied and says 10 is low, go higher. The number is 14. 13 is low, go high. 15. 15 is high, go lower. 14, it gets 14 correctly. Okay, so this has been a tutorial on how to create a number guessing game using JavaScript, HTML and CSS. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I have lots of new tutorials, videos and members only videos coming soon to the channel. Please subscribe, like and comment on whether you enjoyed it, whether you had issues with it, and I will see you on the next tutorial.